Trip and Archer are headed to Canamar. Will T'Pol figure out where they are before they get too far? Did Archer make himself a pal? Or is this new guy just no Al? Find out on the next exciting episode of Enterprise.
I'm Josh.
I'm Justin.
And this is From There to Here. Thank you, Justin. That was beautiful. Brought tears to my eyes. No, that's right. This episode is Canamar. It is season 2, episode 17. And according to IMDb, this is what it's about. Archer and Trip are accused of smuggling and sent to the penal colony Canamar. While Enterprise manages to negotiate their release, a mutiny breaks out on the prison ship. What do you think this was rated on IMDb? I'm thinking in the 6 range.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say 7.5.
Whoa.
Hey, man.
I'm going to say 6.8.
Okay.
Yes, I'm
Really?
right. 6.8.
Okay.
On the nose, man.
I thought it would have been higher rated.
This episode's a stinker. You don't think so?
I wouldn't call it a stinker.
Oh, okay. I was surprised.
No.
I thought that the boredom was mutual.
The tropes were a little annoying, but I mean,
A little annoying?
I wouldn't go so far as to say it was a bad episode.
Okay, well,
I'm not going to sit here and like vehemently defend it, but I don't think it was a bad episode.
no. Bland would be my word of
I
choice.
have my thoughts about it. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I wouldn't say bad. Just
Well, I found it was so bland. It was forgettable. Like,
wait, before we go ahead, should I read the
yeah, I'm jumping the gun here.
Wikipedia?
Yeah, what do you have for
bits?
trivia?
Okay, let's see. Guest star Mark Ralston, who played Kuroda, previously appeared as Lieutenant Pierce in Star Trek The Next Generation.
As creepy Lieutenant Pierce.
As creepy Lieutenant Pierce.
And as Boggs in the Shawshank Redemption.
Yes. He found the fight scene strenuous and said, Scott Bakula and I must have spent 10 hours filming the fights. And let me tell you, both of us are in our 40s now, so it's not quite as easy as it looks.
No, I bet.
I enjoyed that. Also, Brian Tyler composed the score for the episode and the episode Regeneration later in the season.
Brian Tyler did the Dune miniseries.
Yes, he did. In fact, that's part of this trivia. Tyler previously scored the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries Frank Herbert's Children of Dune and had replaced composer Jerry Goldsmith on the film Timeline. Some of his work had been used as a temp track, and the producers decided to ask him if he would just go ahead and score the episode. As a Star Trek fan, he agreed, with the added condition that he also get a full tour of the Enterprise set.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Good for him.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that. That's a guy I can work with.
Yeah.
I dig that.
Nice.
I saw in the documentary that you have multiple times refused to sit down and watch, the documentary called Score, all about film composers and all of that.
Have I refused multiple
I've tried
times?
multiple times. You have resisted me at every time.
I don't think I've resisted you.
You
It
have.
sounds interesting.
You have.
Okay, fine.
Anyway, but there's this whole section. He's one of the...
Send you to Canamar.
before I get too far.
Yeah.
He's one of the guys that they actually track and follow, and you see him. He goes to a.
Do you want to hear my poem that I was going to do?
Yeah, please.
Okay,
I wanna
so
hear.
it was we both use Canamar for a rhyme. I mean, how can you not?
Yeah.
Archer and Trip are going to Canamar, but will they make it that far? Yeah, yours is better.
I did the same thing.
I know. Please make this episode less bland. For God's sake, I'll even take Yeoman Rand.
I like my Al reference.
Yeah, fine.
What was I going to say? What was I talking about?
Brian Tyler's score.
Oh, Brian Tyler. Yeah, just in that Score documentary, he was going, whatever movie he had just scored, he actually went to a movie theater and went in after it started just to get the audience's reaction to the movie and to his score and all that. He was just hungry to see. I dug that. I like it.
What does this have to do with
Because
Enterprise?
he scored this episode. He did the miniseries for Dune, and then he got really big, and now he's doing movies and all that. This is obviously before he really got into the movie territory.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's cool. I like him as a composer. I think he's really good. And there were a couple notable pieces that I felt stuck out. I didn't know he did it.
He had that one great piece from the Dune miniseries that was used in the Master and Commander trailer. I don't know what the track is.
I'd have to hear the piece.
I couldn't tell you, but it's awesome.
No, he is good.
Remember Master and Commander?
I do.
Okay.
Good movie.
So about Canamar.
Yeah.
Now, we seem to be diverging about this episode. I thought it was really nothing to write home about. I mean, good Lord. There was so much brown in this episode. I couldn't take it. I mean, by the end of the episode, when they finally made it back to the Enterprise, I was like, oh my God, I never thought I'd be so happy to see these gray walls again.
Gray.
I was like,
it's not that I disagree. It's not that I would fight any of the criticisms. It's loaded with cliches. It's just cliche city. And
well, that's bad. That's inherently bad.
It is bad. And
I mean, every beat, you know what's going to happen.
I know.
I mean, you know that, I'm the only pilot here. I have to help you. Oh, but you got to let my friend loose too. Not going to fall for that.
One of my things that I was thinking of as the episode was playing out was that, and I made this criticism of Enterprise before, particularly about Scott Bakula, which is, it stinks because I love Scott Bakula.
I mean, like how he says orange,
R instead of or, it's R.
Okay.
No, it's just that he seems to be dialing back his anger about whatever scene or situation he's in where he's supposed to be angry. So he kind of played it understated at the beginning, and then he ends up helping to pilot ship with the main mutiny, and he started to come to life a little bit, and he really did at the end, which I enjoyed. I felt like he finally unchained a little bit, but it was just too little, too late.
How?
Like at the end when he turns and he talks to the guy once they're on Enterprise, and he says, "Let me give you a report." And I felt like, yeah, give me more of that. Like he felt actually angry. I didn't feel like he was censoring his temper.
Okay,
it was part. Brief.
I thought you meant the part with Boggs.
No, although I did enjoy the fight with Boggs, but not just with Bakula, but with the whole show of Enterprise. Star Trek as a whole struggles with really letting people be mean. It's like they always, I think it's just because they're afraid that their core audience is families. So there's only so tough they're willing to get. So it's this PG tough, it's kind of like Swingers, like don't be the tough guy that we really hope makes it happen. Be the R-rated guy that shoves a knife into someone, You
felt that way even on the prison ship when they were fighting with.
Well, yeah, like I talked to you as the episode was playing with the Nausicaan, after Trip hit him over the head
even
and knocked
for
him
Nausicaan,
out.
he was a nice guy. Too
yeah,
nice.
That's
he was
what I'm
too
saying.
Nice.
Like for a Nausicaan, he was too nice. That Nausicaan would have taken every chance he could to wallop on Trip and all of that.
Yeah,
and
not to get into future segments of the show, but we joked about it during the episode. Different title, No Grumba.
No Grumba.
Definitely better than Canamar.
Definitely.
More memorable too.
Yeah. But that's one of those things. It's that episode lacked teeth, and they really,
you're forgetting about the best part. Del Griffith was sitting next to
that was honestly probably one of the saving graces of the episode.
Oh well, that's where I'm gonna call foul on the episode, because I feel like it was full of cliches. You've already mentioned that, but it couldn't quite figure out what tone it wanted to have.
No, and that was a problem.
It was a balance of this Del Griffith character. And if you don't know who Del Griffith is, well, what's wrong with you? He's from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah,
He's John
you don't
Candy.
know. Come on.
He's talking the ear off of Trip, and he doesn't realize that he's annoying, and Trip is getting annoying. He looks like Steve Martin in Planes and Trains as John Candy's talking to him. It's that obvious. But then we go to these very serious moments between the Boggs character. I don't know what his character's name is.
He's either Boggs or Lieutenant Pierce.
Pierce or Boggs, whichever. You know who I'm talking about. And Archer, or then back on the Enterprise. And the tone is very serious and straightforward, and just played straight, for lack of a better phrase. So what was that all about? I don't know. So they needed to make up their mind. What did they want?
I agree.
Did they want a funny episode, or did they want a serious episode? I mean, you can have a good episode about prisoners trying to escape. That's fine, but you need to stick to that.
I agree. That guy threw off the tone as much as I enjoyed the Del
Not only
Griffith
that, his
thing.
makeup threw off the tone. What the hell was that?
Well,
You had
if the tone was a funny episode, then his look would have been fine. But
there's one point where he starts stroking the gummy bears,
his gummy worms
on his chin.
I know. I agree. That
At least they made use of it, though.
That hurt the tension, most definitely. You know, I'm actually flashing back to an episode of Voyager, The Shoot.
That's right. That's right. That's Paris and Kim.
Yes, The Shoot, where they end up in this prison where these guys are really unpleasant and they're vicious.
Don't they have to climb up through the chute to get out?
That's their plan, but they can't do it. There's something in the way. But the point is that these prisoners are absolutely uninterested in their feelings or whatever, and they beat them. They take their food. They don't care. They do not care. And you feel it as a viewer. You feel like Paris and Kim are really up against it because there is no sweet, nice guy in this group that's going to help them out. It's genuinely filled with peril. But this episode, the Nausicaan has no teeth. The Lieutenant Pierce, he is kind of a tough guy, but then he ends up with Archer back there on the bridge the whole time, so he's kind of not really doing anything bad. And then you have Del Griffith throwing the whole tone of the episode off. So the whole episode has no grumba, unfortunately. And they needed to make a choice, you know, save Del Griffith for another episode or just choose to be a comedy or something like that. You know, I agree though that threw it off. They needed to let the Nausicaan just be tough, actually kill someone. Mm-hmm. That guard God, I couldn't remember some of the details of this episode, but when the coup was staged and the Nausicaan had beat up one of the guards and then chained him up and he was laying there unconscious or whatever, and one of the other guards was telling the Nausicaan, hey, don't let that guy die. If he dies, you know, if you get caught, you're going to get busted for this, you know, help him, give him medical care, whatever. And the Nausicaan leans down and I thought, oh, he's just going to shoot the guard. He's just going to shoot him, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was fully prepared for that and wanted that to happen so that the Nausicaan was tough and mean, but he doesn't do it.
So we'd feel a threat.
Yeah. But he didn't do it. And again, I think that's the family Star Trek thing. They're just afraid to do it.
Yeah, you know, I expected. Well, let me rewind a bit. You know, they set up this
reverse it.
Yes, they set up this what was supposed to be this threat of the Nausicaan. When the Nausicaan asks Trip for his food,
right?
Trip says no, and then he immediately gets the Nausicaan gets up and almost attacks him, but then he gets electrocuted by his handcuffs, whatever.
See, like,
But what I was getting at is they set that up to make him a threat.
Right.
But then when he gets loose, I'm like,
he doesn't follow through.
He doesn't follow through on attacking. You think he's going to attack Trip, but he doesn't. So I'm like, well, then what was the point in setting that up?
He should have, before the guard zapped him, he should have stood up and been within like reaching distance of Trip and have Trip turn around, have him grab Trip and pick him up and yell, "Roar!" and have him go, "Oh my gosh!"
Have him yell, "You have no grumba!"
Yeah, and just go, "Roar!" and like he was gonna eat him.
Yes,
and then the guard zap him. You know, like make him a threat. You know, but again, PG. We keep wanting these things to be at least PG-13, but they won't do it. They won't cross that
DS9
line.
went there.
That's exactly what they did not want to repeat. Yeah, unfortunately, which is why
Voyager took chances. They brought up the shoot.
I've been defending Voyager for a long time. Voyager is better than people give it credit for.
I don't think Voyager is a bad series. I think it's a little bit on the bland side. Is my point. There are a lot of great.
I think
episodes,
it's got more life than Enterprise usually does.
I think you're right about that.
Which is a sad thing to say.
I think it has more character. You know, in terms of,
right.
I don't mean just characters, but a bit more flavor, like more interest. The characters are more interesting, more full of life and nuanced.
I agree.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I'm standing in the writer's room. Do you want to come in here with me?
Yeah. You know, I was thinking we were kind of already leaning or
I already had one foot in, but I feel like I walked in.
We're looking through the doorway anyway, because this episode
I feel like I'm standing
has problems.
There. Yeah.
Okay.
So where do you want to start? I think I addressed.
There's plenty of places to go.
Well,
I mean, this episode is ripe for rewrite.
Okay. We both agree, I think, that the episode needed teeth. And they really needed to let the Nausicaan be a Nausicaan.
They needed to kill Del Griffith.
They needed to kill someone.
Someone needed to die, basically.
Yeah, someone needed to die.
That Nausicaan was like the nicest Nausicaan I've ever seen.
I know.
He was
why
he was like
put him
Mr.
in
Rogers
Nausicaan
of the
makeup?
Nausicaans.
He was. I mean,
welcome to my prison ship.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
So I would rewrite it to make the Nausicaan have more teeth, as you said, to actually kill someone. I think if he had done that right when he got out, that would have brought a threat. To the rest.
Or
of
if he killed the guard, like I was.
The guard, someone, anyone,
but in cold blood, to show that he did not care.
I think it really would have. Well, what I said while we were watching is I thought something bad was going to happen to the Del Griffith character.
Yeah, and I kept telling you, no, not going to happen.
And I was like, yeah,
he's like the puppy.
You turned out to be right. But what if though they had he turns out to be this kind of like. He's kind of harmless, but he's annoying. And then he gets killed. He gets brutally killed by the Nausicaan or someone else. And you're like, whoa, well okay.
Well, this just took a turn. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. That
probably would have been a good turn.
That would
too.
put you on edge a little bit.
Yeah.
But also change the color scheme a little bit.
Oh, the whole series needs that.
Please. Well, in this particular prison ship, add some shades. Everything was just the dark brown. And I was like, I couldn't take it anymore.
Did anyone get captured on a resort planet? Is no one wearing red?
Well, first of all, we had no idea this alien species that had accidentally, well, not accidentally, they had accused them of smuggling something. It didn't really matter.
Right.
That was backstory that we were fed early on in the episode. And to tell you the truth, it didn't really mean much to me. It was
no, it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. And now I know I mentioned Archer and the way he felt a little unshackled at the end of the episode, literally at the end of the episode, where he kind of let it go to the, I don't know what he was. The guy that was on Enterprise,
right.
Whatever that guy was.
The magistrate
or something, he kind of gave him his what's up and just turned and walked off, which felt nice. Like he felt like genuine, but it didn't feel earned. Because, like we're pointing out, did anything really bad happen on that ship? Not really. They were mildly inconvenienced for a few hours.
And also, Archer had never talked with that guy before.
Right. That's what I'm saying. There was no... If we had spent, say, the first act with them as the prisoners and building the Del Griffith character up to where we're like, will you please shut up? And once the act one could end with the prison break and the, Trip could say something like, can you please just move me from this guy, whatever. And the Nausicaan could take that moment to just kill him and go, there you go. He's quiet now.
That would have been a good payback, a big callback for, well, that's my way of thanking. Like I owed you one, remember?
Yeah.
You helped me.
Right.
I just helped you.
Yeah.
There you go.
And
then Trip would feel really bad.
And that's something Archer would have seen.
Okay.
Archer would have seen that and been really hurt by that.
Yeah.
And I think one or two other things should have happened in Act 2 and Act 3 to make it to where when the Enterprise security team finally boards the ship and takes everyone out, and he has the fight with the main guy with Pierce. Give us a reason for Archer to be really pissed off so that when he walks into Enterprise, he just might want to belt this guy. But honestly, when you think about it, he was mildly inconvenienced.
Well, what would have been nice is because Scott Bakula ended up spending a lot of time with the Pierce character, or Boggs, whatever you want to call him.
Pierce Boggs.
Pierce Boggs up in the front in the cockpit.
Yeah.
They should have used that as an opportunity to maybe explore some kind of something kind of connection they might have.
Yeah.
So where Archer may feel a little conflicted.
Right.
But they didn't
just
do
to
that.
Give it some flavor.
Pierce was just some guy. He was in like, oh, who cares? It was you that Archer is never going to go with him, because Archer's lying to him for starters.
Right.
So it all just felt like, why am I watching this? I know where it's going to lead to.
Yeah.
So what was the point there? I don't know.
Well, I think your point was, if you're going to spend screen time with that, make it worth something.
Yeah.
And the only thing that it does, and he accomplished that early in their conversation, which is he says, I'm not going back. The typical, I'm not going back. And that's fine. I'm sure it's not a fun place to be, Canamar. So that's fine. He doesn't want to go back. But if you're going to spend this much screen time,
right,
like you said, make that mean something. Or have him say, yeah, I did the things they're accusing me of, but I got a kid, or I got a this or that. He's a bad guy. Bad guys can have families too. Mm-hmm. At least humanize him a little bit. He can still be an absolute douche, but give us, the audience, a reason to say, well, maybe I want his kid to see him. Something.
To bring back Voyager for a second here,
sure,
because Voyager did. Well, it wasn't that. It was sort of similar, a little bit. It involved prisoners. I think it was called. I can't remember what it was called, but it was in season 7 where
I know the one you're talking about,
right?
Where they put the prison cells in the cargo bay,
right?
That
and
one?
Then there's a couple of the prisoners. One is the lead, and he turns out to be a nice guy after he's given brain surgery,
right?
But then there's another guy who turns out to be conning Neelix the whole time,
right?
And they're able to humanize both of those guys. Mm-hmm. And actually make you care about the guy that was a violent criminal and now is repenting. Is that what it's called? Repentance?
It might be.
They made it work there. They're able to bring life to those people there. So it is possible.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally.
Mm-hmm. So why not?
When you just said, because I forgot about that part. I remember that episode, but the part where you said the one guy, they altered his brain to make him a nice guy now.
Yes.
It makes me think of Demolition Man.
Okay.
How they put these skills in their brains.
Oh, right.
And Stallone's character knits now.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Okay.
Anyway, that was it. Sorry.
That was rehabilitation.
Yeah, it was just a little aside.
Yeah. So there was a lot of places they could have gone, but they didn't. It was very by the numbers or formulaic, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. It was it lacked a lot of imagination. I wonder in their writer's room why they couldn't come up with some better ideas. Like, I'm sure they could have. I think you're right. I think there are maybe certain points they can't go to, quotas, whatever. And that's why we end up getting something that they're trying to please everyone. And so it just ends up feeling a little unsatisfying at the end.
I agree. I honestly agree. In trying to please everyone, they please no one.
Yeah. Well, since I feel like we've run our course on this episode.
You think?
What do you think? Is there anything else you want to criticize it about? Or?
Well, I mean, if we're talking, we entered the writer's room, we would definitely give it more teeth, have a death happen at the end of Act 1. Act 2, raise the stakes even higher.
Okay.
And Act 3, in the episode as it is, I like the fight between Archer and Pierce Boggs.
But why?
I don't know. Maybe it was the music, because the music stuck out to me.
Did it? Okay.
It did.
I guess I didn't notice.
No,
okay.
It did.
Okay.
And I think that fight would have been made more interesting had we humanized Pierce Boggs a little more and gave Archer just that little nugget of maybe there's something here worth saving.
Well, that's kind of what I said, right?
I know. I know.
Okay.
And I'm saying, had they done that,
okay,
then them fighting would have added this layer of neither one of them really wants to do this, but they have to. Like, Pierce Boggs has to do this because he doesn't want to go back, and Archer has to do it because he's Archer. So that would have added some flavor to it. Although I did enjoy the fight, and I enjoyed, when the docking beep goes off, there's nothing good on the other side of that door for Pierce Boggs. And honestly, I had forgotten what it was. Like, I didn't know, was it Enterprise that docked with them, or was it? I didn't know, but I just knew it was going to be
something not good,
something fun for us to watch.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I love how they did it. The doors open and
that was kind of cool.
Malcolm comes out shooting, and I love that. And I wish there was more like that.
More surprises,
immediate tension, surprises, all that. In an episode that begged for it, there was so little of it, unfortunately. And I like that. I wish they had actually done more with it visually, but I like that the two ships were docked as the shuttle was going down because they had put it into a descending orbit. And I like that it added the shake to the ship. It added tension. I wish they had done more to it, like show flames or something like this is really bad. Any second.
Yeah, they never have circuit breakers on any of these ships.
Yeah. Let me see something. This is, give it more visual flair.
Yeah. What maybe would have been cool, if in this revised version in our revised version, if, Archer and Pierce Boggs, if they maybe bond a little bit or, Archer feels a little empathy for him.
Yeah.
Or sympathy. And maybe it comes down to a choice.
I was just going to say that. Ooh, let me see if you're going where I'm thinking.
I was thinking that maybe he takes Trip prisoner or somebody else prisoner. And he has to kill Pierce Boggs.
He doesn't have
a choice.
Not where I was going.
Okay, where were you going?
Where I was thinking, so if we've humanized a little bit Pierce Boggs, Archer and Pierce Boggs have their fight, and you have Malcolm at the door going, Captain, we have to go. And let's say at some point in their fight, Pierce Boggs has made his way to the cockpit, and he's at the door. And Archer said, we have 2 seconds. You'll live. Just come with me. And have Pierce Boggs say, I told you I'm not going back. Like a moment of calm, and hit that door, just saying, I know what I'm doing. He's committing suicide.
Yeah.
And have Archer, have it be a look between them where Archer's like, all right, I get it. And that's it. Like bittersweet ending.
To get there,
you have to humanize him. You have to build that relationship.
But how would you get there though? I mean, that would be difficult.
They already spent screen time on it. Just have that screen time be better written,
Yeah, but what could those two bond over that would make that happen? That would be hard.
Well, I think about Cisco and what's his name? Oh God, the Maquis guy. Help me out.
I don't know.
Come on, Chavert and
Oh yeah, okay.
What's his name?
Eddington. Okay.
Cisco and Eddington.
Yeah.
Cisco wanted nothing more than to demonize him and dehumanize him so he could take him down with no ambiguity. But Eddington was a real guy, and he makes a point of saying to Cisco, hey, this isn't personal. You're making it personal. I just did what I felt I had to do for what I thought were my people. You did what you had. Like, it's not personal. Like, let's just cut ties and go. But Cisco couldn't let it go.
His uniform.
Yes, he did. And the bastard deserved to burn. But when they found themselves in that shuttle in the last episode with Eddington, and because he caught him and he's taking him in, and Eddington is, I don't want to say endearing himself to Cisco, but Cisco could not help but see him differently, to where I don't want to say he mourns his death at the end of that episode, but he realizes he had a wife, he had a family, and Cisco, whether he said it or not, we, the audience, remember Cisco had a friend from season 2 who went to the Maquis. Good people could make those choices. So in that moment, he allowed himself to rehumanize Eddington. And that made Eddington's death, even more sad.
Okay, well, to offer a little criticism for that.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, Eddington was a character that was well established
over
many episodes.
That is true. I realize we're talking about
Pierce Boggs is a one-off character.
No, I get it. I know I'm reaching for the stars
with this guy.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
Okay,
even just a little bit. Give us a little something. And there really wasn't anything. It was all bullshit. It's like, oh, here we go. It's like that scene in Deep Space Nine with Cisco and Wei-Yun, when Wei-Yun says, you're going to take that minefield down. And he says, no, I'm not. And then he said, but what about the children and all the people that we're going to save, all the starving Cardassians and all that? And Cisco said, I didn't know it was that bad. Oh, but you don't know. but you're blocking us and we can't do this. And they have a few minutes of back and forth about it. And Wayun leaves. And I think it's Kira that comes up to him and says, what did he say? All Cisco says, all the wrong things. And he said, the moment I told him I wasn't going to take the thing, it meant war. Everything else
was just
words.
Yeah, it was just words.
And I dug that. Yeah. They both knew it was BS, but they both had to do it. But the decision was made. You know, they were able to establish that in a conversation in like 60 seconds. And it was great. I'm not saying we would have had any character buildup with Pierce Boggs, but with some really good tight writing, you could get somewhere. If you're talking about
tight writing, I mean, DS9 probably had the best.
Oh, arguably.
Yeah, well, Enterprise clearly didn't.
No, I think they
had some good moments.
Yes,
and some so
of
far.
Course they did. But they had definitely spent their wad at that point. The writers, I think these guys must have been burned out.
Who were the? I mean, were this the same writers that were working on?
Yes, I think that these, like, for the most part.
Surely they must have had a new batch of writers.
Oh, sure. I'm sure they had some fresh blood coming in. But I mean, the core group, you know, this is a long time.
How many stories can they
And, you know,
recycle?
I can't. As I was watching this episode, I was literally thinking to myself, you know, they made this show at the time with the intention of being grittier and more real.
Did they? Like, they tried. Grittier? Like,
you know, baseball caps.
Yeah, but is that gritty? I mean, I think they were trying to ground it. I don't know if that means gritty.
Well, maybe not. But they were trying to do something different, a little more.
Different, perhaps. but
they didn't have the teeth to do it. I think they the writers, producers.
Could that be less of a producer thing, more of a network thing?
I don't know.
This was new UPN.
It's a good question.
And
yeah, I don't know.
UPN was, I don't know what they were trying to do, but you had said that UPN shows like all kind of had a similar look.
Yeah,
I think we've mentioned this before. Maybe they were trying for a similar vibe across the board, like a brand. They were trying to create a brand. There you go.
Maybe action
I hate
adventure.
that word, but they were trying to create a brand.
Yeah,
and that meant that
UPN did have Team Knight Rider.
Did it?
Yeah,
okay.
It had that look.
Okay, well, with this brand, that meant that Enterprise writers, producers, whatever, they couldn't go places maybe they wanted to. Could that be a theory that could hold any water?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the writers that was on TNG and then made it over to Deep Space Nine. I don't know if he had anything to do with Enterprise. I'm going to butcher his name. Naren Shankar. God, I can't say it. But he had been on TNG and DS9, you know, Star Trek. But then after that, he was a writer on not Law and Order, a procedural cop show that definitely had tough stuff in it and things like that, and did quite well. You have Ron Moore, who went and did Battlestar Galactica, which arguably had teeth and all of that. And so I'm sure these writers and producers, like, you know, to answer your question, definitely wanted to do certain things, but then found themselves
boxed in,
edited by either Berman. And I'm not saying that as a shot against Berman, but by Berman's edict of this is what Star Trek cannot be. Or, like you said, maybe it was UPN, maybe it was Paramount that just said, guys, I get it, but this is Star Trek. You can't do that.
Yeah, but they stuck it on a prison ship, right?
Yeah.
With criminals, and
none of which are the least bit offensive.
So why do that then? If they have no balls, like, just do, like, I the whole time I was watching it, I kept imagining, what if this episode was in the TOS series? It would have been much better. I mean, we would have seen Kirk doing double kicks. It would have been fun,
man.
and now it's like watered down. Like, so what the hell happened?
I agree with you. But you know, that was a different time, TOS, when you think about it. TOS had a lot more teeth than people give it credit for. I mean, there was, even though you didn't always see it on screen, there was some dark stuff in TOS and some tough decisions that get made and things like that. And people do die. I mean, there are consequences for actions. It's covered up in some 60s stuff, but sometimes it's not. You know, it's kind of a funny show the way. I mean, I was talking to you a couple weeks ago or something about one of the episodes where Kirk gets stabbed in the back. I mean, it's a cool fight in the middle of a hallway. You would never see that on TNG anymore. And he reaches back and there's blood, real blood and all that stuff. And they're too afraid to do any of that anymore. And I get it. It's a family audience, that's probably more of Berman and the head, the studio heads, but probably more so Berman, to be honest with you. I think Berman was, to his credit, doing his very best to maintain what he thought Star Trek was supposed to be. And I mean, Berman was no saint in paradise. This is the guy that openly in interviews talked about casting for the season 1 TNG episode where Wesley is going to be killed for breaking the plants. What's it called? Justice. And he talks about what a burden it was to sit in on casting for that.
Come on, he's just fooling around. He's fooling around.
But my point is, he didn't have any problem scantily cladding people and all of that. So I'm not saying the guy didn't have it in him. I just think that he was doing his best to be respectful to what he thought it was supposed to be. I'm sure he, just like anyone else, would have loved to have given it more teeth, but that's not what he thought Trek was supposed to be. And again, I'm not trying to defend it, just recognizing, kind of the ins and outs of it all, I guess.
Okay, fine.
What?
Fine. No, that's fine. I don't quite agree with you, but well, I do have some questions we can move on to.
Oh yeah, okay.
So Sebastian from Germany. Thank you for the questions, by the way. Sent us 2 very long questions for Canamar. So here's question number 1. I think the ending ruined the episode.
How so?
It wasn't ruined before then? Okay. It could have been a story about Archer and Trip solving the problem with communication, empathy, deception, and teamwork. Interesting. Okay. They almost did. But in the end, it was a witness action finale. Oh, sorry. Witless action finale with William Shatner award-winning fistfights.
I think it was a good fist fight. I liked it.
Okay. There must be a deeper reason behind that. A reason why they thought the series should have more cowboy diplomacy, but what reason could that be?
I'm a little confused.
Yeah, so am I. Okay. There should be a deeper reason behind that. A reason why they thought this series should have more cowboy diplomacy. But what reason could that be? Is that
I'm still a little lost.
Yeah, I'm a little lost too. I think it might be.
Read the whole thing again.
Okay, I think the ending ruined the episode. It could have been a story about Archer and Trip solving the problem with communication, empathy, deception, and teamwork. They almost did, but in the end, it was a witless action finale with William Shatner award-winning fistfights. There must be a deeper reason behind that, a reason why they thought this series should have more cowboy diplomacy. But what reason could that be?
Okay, I think I get what he's saying.
Okay.
I think he's saying that essentially the episode ended with a cowboy diplomacy thing, the fist fight.
Yeah.
Whereas it could have been a
kind of an emotional,
calculated, or solving it with their wits and not a fist fight. Mm-hmm. So why is that? I think he's asking.
I think it's because of what we've been talking about.
Yeah, basically, I think you're right.
That they wanted to.
I think it more so falls into what you said at the top of the episode, which is they didn't know what tone this episode was. Yeah, okay. And
well, I was thinking more along the lines of this was generic, by the numbers.
Yeah,
that's what's supposed to happen in an episode like this. You have a fist fight. Right. That's what they gave us.
Yeah.
I don't think it was anything beyond that.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe something like in our rewrite would have been much better.
What if they never fought? And what if the ship got boarded and Archer said, "Come on, let's go. I know it means prison, but it's better than dying." And then he just goes, "No, it's not." Bleep, bleep. Shh. That's an emotional ending.
Yeah.
And as they pull away, you actually see that thing burn up.
It would have been really hard to earn that, though. To earn that moment. That
Good writing.
Question number 2. When I thought about why I found this episode kind of disappointing, I realized that there was nothing fascinating about it. And with fascinating, I mean some scientific, technological, or cultural oddity. Something that Mr. Spock would comment on as fascinating and raise an eyebrow. That story about the prisoner transport is just bland. Oh, I guess he felt like I did. That made me wonder, is something fascinating one of the key ingredients to a very good Star Trek episode?
Go ahead. What do you think?
Is something fascinating one of the key ingredients? It depends on what you find fascinating. That's a very subjective way of putting it. Fascinating, like what Spock, like he said, what Spock raises an eyebrow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, clearly, what we think is fascinating is character exploration.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think maybe.
I think I would say.
Yeah.
I think I would say. Yes, I think that's. Well, I mean, then again, that's which Star Trek are we talking about here? Because each series, I think. Well, no. We've said time and again that Star Trek at its best is when it tackles a figurative and a common day issue figuratively.
That's not always the case.
Not always.
I don't think that's always
true. It can
true.
do that. But it's also really good when it explores its characters in a sci-fi setting, right? Does that make sense? I mean, look at an episode like Tapestry from TNG that's all about Picard exploring his past and his past regrets.
Mm-hmm.
That did not have to take place in the future in the 24th century to be a good episode about a guy thinking about his past and regretting it.
I agree with you. And I think that is Star Trek's greatest strength. I think the whole business of allegory is important, and that's cool for sci-fi, but I think that's very much overhyped with Trek. So there are countless episodes that are not allegories to anything. I think you're right. I think the key to Star Trek is not the fascinating aspect, although that's cool. That's great. But I think you were hitting on something when you said that each series did something a little different. For TOS, that was kind of its shtick, let's say. You know, like, I don't know why the episode is popping into my mind as you were talking, but I was thinking about The Changeling.
So was I.
Weird.
Yes.
Changeling didn't have anything to do with allegories. Mm-hmm. But what Changeling, that did two things that I think address his question. Yes, it had the fascinating thing because Spock was mind melding and that whole fascinating thing, but it made Nomad interesting. Mm-hmm. You actually felt bad that robot had to go pop at the end because the poor guy was just doing what he thought he had to do. And it actually made interesting drama. Like you said, Tapestry, things like that. Some of the best episodes of TNG didn't have anything to do with allegories. You could argue that Chain of Command is an allegory for, POWs, specific things, whatever.
One of my favorite episodes is The Wounded.
Look at that.
That's about PTSD.
PTSD. Yeah. Okay. But it's not like that doesn't have to be, that wasn't covered up. It was PTSD, whereas in Enterprise, there was the AIDS allegory episode Stigma, where that was an allegory. That one, The Wounded, was actually about PTSD. It was open. That was a real thing. But what made it work was
the characters.
A very interesting character. Mm-hmm. And Bob Gunton made you sympathetic to his character, and you actually felt like, God, someone listened to him.
Well, I think Bob Gunton, yes, he was a one-off, and he did a great job, but he had the compliment of Colin Meaney.
Yes, he did. Which
genius. Helped build his character before we even met him. Yeah.
Then we move on to Deep Space Nine. Some of the best Deep Space Nine episodes were character-driven episodes. Mm-hmm. You have, I don't know why I popped in there. You have an episode like The Ship, where they're just trapped, but it's all about these characters bouncing off of each other and all of that. So that is Star Trek's strength. Mm-hmm. And this episode did have those opportunities, and did they fulfill them? No, they didn't. They had Del Griffith. If you're going to give us a Del Griffith, they're like we said,
yes,
pay it off somehow. And if you're going to trap Archer in that room with that guy, pay it off. And it didn't. It wasn't that what was meant to be an emotional ending of sorts had no payoff because there was no buildup. So long story, long way around the mountain. No, I don't think that that's not what Star Trek needs, the whole fascinating thing to work. I think that's an element that makes TOS interesting, but not Enterprise. That's not what Enterprise is. Not really. And, they tried really hard in the first season to make T'Pol kind of like Spock, but it didn't stick. And she developed into her own character, which that's when the show really took on its life, when they stopped trying to mimic.
I think TNG was like that in the beginning because it was very much like TOS in the beginning.
Yes, it was. And we talked about that
with
recently.
An episode like The Arsenal of Freedom.
Yeah.
That's like Lonely Among Us. Those are very TOS style episodes. But then as it goes,
if you were to have The Arsenal of Freedom be a TOS episode, who is what? Who, how Picard and Beverly fall through the hole and are trapped at the bottom?
Yeah.
So who would that be? Would that be the captain and Kirk? Or no, I'm sorry, the doctor and Kirk? Bones and Kirk?
I suppose it could be.
So then that would be up on the surface. That would be Spock.
Yeah.
Who else?
It would have to be Scotty and Sulu.
No.
Imagine.
Would Scotty be up on the ship? I'm just trying to
No.
It needs to be someone green.
Yes, that's what. Yeah, someone green. It would probably have to be someone like Sulu or Chekhov.
I would have loved to have seen Sulu take command.
Yeah,
that would have been awesome.
So not to go too far off of Canamar here. I think I understand better after that dialogue Justin just had.
Jesus, man. I feel like I get into these things.
What Sebastian was getting at.
Yeah.
And I think with something like what I was bringing up Arsenal of Freedom and stuff like that was that it had those fascinating components, those X factors, those technological components. But then you get later into TNG and they relied less heavily on that and invested more in, I think, the story and their character. So I think it does have something to do with this series. DS9 didn't really care about that. Like the wormhole was just a thing. It was just there to connect us to other stories.
The wormhole was a genuine MacGuffin.
It didn't really matter.
Yeah.
The same thing like in TOS, it was just the Doomsday machine was just Moby Dick. Right. It didn't really matter what it was. It was a story about this guy that needed to get his whale.
Yeah.
That was the thing. So
I saw it.
I think you can make that technological or X factor thing, whatever you want it to be. You can make it as interesting as you want it to be. Sure, there are examples of where it is more interesting. I mean, Nomad is far more interesting than something like the Exocomps. Right?
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yes, but the story of Data and the Exocomps is a good story.
That's interesting.
Yes, the Exocomps by themselves are not that interesting, but that story is fine.
Yes.
So I
do kind of feel for those little guys at the end.
I hope that answers your question, Sebastian. I don't know.
I feel like the answer's there. I don't know if we directly said one thing specific, but I think we said it.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, that's all. Those were really fun. Thank you, Sebastian.
Yeah. No, thank you.
He does have another one for us for the next one. So please do send us some more. Please, sir, I'd like some more. Yes, very much. Also, sorry that we didn't post last week.
Yeah, Josh didn't want to.
Oh, yeah, it was my fault. But if you're still hanging around with us, you came back this week to listen to us. We're not dead.
Yeah, sorry. It was just an off week for me, guys. It was just hard to sit down and do it.
But in terms of like awards, I don't really have any for this. I mean, Sebastian did mention some Shatner Award-esque fist fighting.
Come on. You are not going to give anyone the No Grumba award?
Oh, well, geez.
Are you serious?
I mean, we only mentioned it like how many times?
That's what I'm saying. Come on.
Well, who would you give it to?
You have to give it to Del Griffith because he specifically stopped when Trip and the security guy took out the Nausicaan, and then Pierce Boggs came through, and Del Griffith threw it off because he was a coward and he wouldn't let them do it. He acted with no grumba.
I guess, but no, I already knew he was a coward before that. So I
he proved
didn't
it in
expect
that
him to do
moment.
anything. That
No
felt
grumba.
like in character to me.
I would give the Nausicaan a no grumba award
Yeah,
because
he
he was
needs
not
one.
a Nausicaan.
Very, very, very much so.
And
That's true.
As much as I enjoy the reference, I don't think the end fight was a Kirk fight. Not really.
I didn't find it to be so much either, but I appreciated Sebastian for referencing our
sure.
award.
I'll take that.
Yes, I did. So the Shatner award is my favorite award. So I don't feel like there was really any kind of Shatner-esque acting in this episode. Not really.
No. Let me ask you this real quick. Do you think the episode would have been better had one or both of the Enterprise crew members been replaced with a different Enterprise crew member?
Well, as I told you while we were watching this, I thought this was going to be a Malcolm and Trip episode on the ship. Maybe that would have been better to see those two together than Archer and Trip. I don't know. I really don't.
I would really like to just see Malcolm deliver some really good fisticuffs.
Sure, why not?
To someone. He's been given the possibility of doing it, but it's never really happened. Mm-hmm. And I would love to. I'd like to see him go toe to toe with the Nausicaan for a little bit, see what happens. That would have been fun.
I would have liked to have seen them experiment with anything because, like I said, this episode was bland. So
maybe
that would have been fine with me.
Maybe it would have been interesting if it had been just, what if they went a totally different route? What if it had been the Doctor and Mayweather? Mayweather's up front driving and the Doctor's in the back, and it's the Doctor that has to get physical. He has to take out that Nausicaan.
And he does his blowfish face.
But put him in a pickle, because that's always, I find that interesting.
No, sure.
In a show like this, when the Doctor has to commit violence,
have them play against type a little bit.
Yeah, and he doesn't necessarily like it. Make that interesting, and it would. I think Anthony Montgomery, God, he really just was seldom ever given anything of substance to do, but had that hypothetical moment where Pierce Boggs, says, no, I'm not going back. And he just closes the door quietly, between he and a young, having it be a young guy like Anthony Montgomery, I think would have been interesting, just change it up a little bit, but just a what if.
It could have been interesting to see the Doctor in there because as a doctor, he's going to have a little bit more compassion for saving life than anyone else.
That's what I mean. It'd be interesting.
Yeah. He would have been a little more willing to listen to them, to feel bad for them. Yeah, that could have been. Sure. Anything would have been.
Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you feel more threat because he, Trip can somewhat take care of himself, but you can't imagine the Doctor doing that. So that adds some threat, Just a thought. Anyway, do you have any trivia?
No, I don't. I do not, but you do this time. Usually it's the other way around.
I just had a couple little things.
Okay.
Let's see. Let me get that. When Archer is trying to convince Pierce Boggs that he can help him, he rattles off a couple different ship elements that he didn't, that could go wrong. What were one of those things?
Oh God. The deuterium will overheat.
Among other things, he mentions the plasma manifolds.
Oh, sure. Those things.
Yeah, those.
Yeah.
Let's see. What was the other one? When Archer and Pierce Boggs are on the bridge or the cockpit, what is it that Archer is fiddling with that Pierce Boggs smashes? And says, well, doesn't work now.
Oh, I don't remember.
The subspace transceiver.
Oh, okay.
Because Archer says, oh, I'm fixing it so it won't send a transmission. And then Pierce Boggs just smashes it and says, well, not doing it now.
Well, thanks for this trivia. You brought up the something that we commented on during the episode that I'd forgotten about, which is the reason why Pierce Boggs lets Archer go into the cockpit is because Archer is a pilot and he's not. And so Archer would apparently know how to fly this ship. Of course, this is a trope. Yeah, that you can fly an alien ship. You can read the language.
What
of the
was his plan?
We don't know, but they show us close up of the panels, and they're clearly written in an alien language that Archer would not know. And he's like just pressing buttons, figuring things out. I'm like, well,
if only they had a shot going from left to right.
Yeah. Okay.
Does anyone get that?
No one gets that joke. But he's just pressing buttons. I'm like, well, why couldn't Pierce Boggs do this? Because that's all Archer's doing. He's
the difference
guessing.
there is that Archer knows what a ship needs to function and navigate, whereas Pierce Boggs has no idea.
Okay, so Pierce Boggs asks him, he's like, oh, so we're going to such and such system. Where's the navigation center? And he's like, it's right here.
This looks
and
like
he's
it.
like, beep, beep, beep. He literally just presses 3 buttons that all just happen to be right next to each other. He's like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on now.
I know.
You telling me it wouldn't have taken you like, I don't know, a few seconds to figure this out?
I know.
I
agree.
I was like, I know this is only 45 minutes, but come on, give me a little something. Like have him show us a moment of Archer's face, like looking a little puzzled for a second. He's like, well, if this is that, then this must be that.
Right.
Something.
No, this.
Something, anything. Okay, no. Well, that's enough of that. That's nitpicking.
Okay, I have one more.
Okay.
One more. What was the name of the planet that was ultimately the meeting place that Pierce Boggs had Archer take them to?
Oh, they said it a couple of times.
It was a planet.
Each time I could not remember.
Tamal.
There you go.
Yeah.
I kept thinking of the alien species because it sounds like
Tamal.
Linoleum.
Oh, yeah.
It's not linoleum.
No, I know, but it sounded
it's like
linoleum
or something. I was like,
I know. Every time they said it, I was like, we need to make a linoleum joke. Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I don't have anything for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought you were maybe looking like typing something in your phone, but I guess not.
Nope, I wasn't. Well, what's coming up next?
Good question. Let me pull it back up. The Crossing.
What is that? What was the one called with? Wait a minute.
Oh, it's that one. That's the one where Trip, the whole Enterprise gets taken into this really big ship.
Oh,
and Trip gets taken over by these like light things.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
He uses the word wisp. And he goes,
yeah.
I like
Okay.
that word.
Then what's hold on. Then what's the one called where they're in the desert and they have to walk through the desert? What was that one called?
We already had that.
I know. What was that called?
That was Desert Crossing.
Oh, okay.
This is just The Crossing.
That's funny.
Let me go back.
That had the guy who was the warden in the Shawshank Redemption. The one we just watched had Boggs in the Shawshank Redemption, who was beat up by the warden.
You're absolutely right.
Little connection there. Okay.
And we've been talking about Bob Gunton,
who was the warden.
Who was the warden?
Yeah, no. Yeah. Oh, no, he wasn't the warden. He was the prison guard.
No, Bob Gunton.
You know, the other guy was the prison guard.
Oh, yes.
I said he was the warden. Yeah,
Clancy Brown was the guard.
This a whole lot of Shawshank connections this episode.
I wonder if they were fans. Like, how I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know.
Well, if you'd like to contact us, you can email us directly at podcastnx01@gmail.com. Of course, you can leave us a comment on our podcast page on Apple Podcasts or leave us a review or rate us, what have you. If you write into us, you can also ask us a question or if there's a particular topic you'd like us to explore, we invite that as well. We don't always have to review episodes.
True.
So please do that. We invite that. It'd be very exciting to hear from you.
All right.
Well, until next time, so long.
Toodaloo.